For 200 years, Earth did not fall. It changed. The early decades were marked by pressure, climate instability, resource strain, systems pushed beyond their design. But collapse never came. Instead, humanity adapted. Energy was the first turning point. Long-term reactors replaced short-term consumption. Power became stable, predictable, sustained across generations. From that stability came expansion. The second century brought the development of multi-generational colony ships, not frozen vessels, not suspended life, living systems. Entire populations designed to be born, raised, educated, and continued in transit. Ships that were not carrying humanity, but becoming it. Over time, they launched. One by one, colony ships departed Earth, each assigned a distant system, each carrying a future that would never return to where it began. Our ship was the last to leave. That was over 400 years ago. We have never seen Earth, only its records. 379 years into our journey, long-range observation confirmed new data on our destination system. 20 planets, 3 within habitable range. The mission changed in that moment, not survival, expansion. We sent a relay back, a message across distance and time. It took 3 years for a response to return. By then, we were 479 years into transit. The message was incomplete, fragmented, but clear in what remained. Earth is gone. 2 years before the signal was sent, our star destabilized. A supernova event, total system loss, no recovery, no survivors. There is no home to return to. What remains of humanity is no longer behind us. It is here, and it is out there. We are no longer a colony mission. We are a survival mission. From this point forward, all known colony ships will be contacted. Every signal path opened, every relay pushed to range. If there are others, we will find them. If there are not, 10. This ship carries the last record of who we were, and the first record of what comes next.
Just the echo we keep inside. We are the last life leaving Earth. Not the end, but a second birth. In the dark where the future waits, we hold the line we never gave.
The final week didn't feel like an ending so much as a shift in gravity. Subtle at first, something you notice more in how people moved than in anything anyone said out loud. The corridors of the education tier carried a different rhythm, less urgency, more lingering, like everyone understood on some quiet level that this version of life was already slipping behind them. Lockers stayed open longer. Conversations stretched past their natural end. Even the instructors, who had spent years measuring progress in clean, structured increments, seemed less concerned with completion and more aware of what came next. The 7 of them moved through it together without needing to coordinate, a pattern built over years of shared schedules, shared meals, shared everything. Jace walked slightly ahead, not leading, just naturally aligning to the front. Lena and Milo traded low remarks behind him, Kara cutting in and out of their path with restless energy. Eli stayed quieter, listening more than speaking, while Tessa and Rowan followed at the edges, watching the same world from slightly different angles. Nothing about it felt dramatic. No speeches, no countdown. Just a slow recognition that the systems guiding their lives were about to hand them off to something less controlled. Somewhere beyond the reinforced hull, the stars held steady, distant, and indifferent, unchanged by any of it. They had been grouped together so long that no one remembered when it stopped being assigned and started being permanent. At some point, the schedule stopped dictating it. They chose the same tables, the same routes, the same rotations without discussion. It wasn't loyalty in any formal sense. It was familiarity layered over time until separation simply didn't make sense anymore. Jace handled the navigation labs with the same quiet consistency he brought to everything else, already thinking in trajectories instead of distances. Lena moved through geological simulations like she was reading something already written beneath the surface, correcting instructors more often than she realized. Milo rarely followed procedure exactly, but his results held, systems responding to his touch as if they preferred his methods. Kara treated every EVA prep drill like it was already real, faster, sharper, unwilling to simulate hesitation. Eli listened through signal noise longer than required, picking patterns others dismissed, while Tessa tracked vitals and responses with a calm that never slipped. Rowan questioned everything, not to challenge authority, but because unanswered details bothered him more than difficult truths. Together, they didn't balance each other perfectly. They overlapped, filled gaps, adjusted without needing to say it, like parts of a system that had learned to run smoother together than apart. The recruitment notice didn't arrive with ceremony. It appeared in the system queue like any other update. Flagged, time-stamped, efficient. Most of the class saw it within minutes, the quiet ripple spreading through shared glances and half-finished conversations. Opportunities on the ship were never rare, but placement into off-cycle field programs carried a different weight. It meant stepping outside the layered safety of simulation and controlled systems. It meant being trusted before arrival. Their names appeared together, listed without hierarchy, assigned to a survey and mining development track that would begin before final approach to the destination system. No one said anything immediately. Not because it wasn't expected, but because seeing it confirmed shifted something. Milo broke first, a low whistle under his breath. Kara smiled in a way that didn't hide anything. Lena scanned the details twice, already analyzing implications. Jace read it once and closed the panel. Eli lingered on the transmission metadata longer than the assignment itself, something about its routing just slightly outside standard timing. Tessa looked at the group, measuring reactions more than the message. Rowan didn't smile. He reread the header, then the timestamp, then the origin point, like something about it hadn't settled correctly yet. Most people moved on from it quickly. Assignments were part of life here, transitions built into the structure of the journey. But not everything settled as cleanly as it should have. Eli pulled the transmission back up later, alone this time, running it through filters he didn't need to justify to anyone. The signal carried the correct identifiers, the correct encryption, even the expected routing signatures. It was clean. Too clean. No drift. No latency variance. Not even the minor inconsistencies that came from long-distance relay buffering. It looked like a local transmission pretending to be something that had traveled farther than it had. He didn't say that out loud. Not yet. Across the ship, systems continued their cycles without interruption. The engines remained dormant between pushes, the hull steady against the pressure of nothing. Outside, the stars held their positions with quiet indifference. But for a moment, just long enough to notice if you were already looking for it, one of the distant points of light seemed to shift, not move across the sky. Just adjust. Then it held again, exactly where it should be, as if it had never been otherwise. The first moment inside the suit was quieter than expected. Sound didn't disappear, but it changed, softened, and redirected through layers of material and controlled air. The world narrowed to what the system allowed through filtered light, measured audio, regulated pressure. For a second, it felt like standing inside your own pulse, every breath louder than it should be, every movement slightly delayed by resistance in the joints. Kara adjusted quickly, rolling her shoulders, testing range of motion like she was mapping the limits in real time. Milo's voice came through the comms a half second before anyone expected it, already joking about the smell of recycled air, the humor landing just enough to cut through the tension. Lena ignored it, focused on her interface, calibrating readouts to match her expectations. Jace spoke once, steady and clear, confirming channel integrity, grounding the group without needing to say more. Eli stayed quiet again, listening not to the others, but to the subtle background noise beneath the system feed. Tessa monitored everyone's vitals, watching for spikes that didn't match behavior. Rowan tested the seals twice, then a third time, not because they failed, but because he needed to know they wouldn't. Nothing went wrong. No alarms, no failures. But the awareness stayed. This was the first layer between them and vacuum, and it was thin. The external platform extended from the ship like an unfinished thought, a rigid structure projecting into open space with no attempt to soften the reality beyond it. The airlock cycle completed with mechanical certainty, inner doors sealing, outer doors releasing with a controlled separation that revealed nothing waiting on the other side. No sound, no movement, just distance, stretching in all directions without resistance. One by one they stepped forward, boots connecting with the platform's surface in slow, deliberate contact. Kara moved first again, her pace steady, confident, body adjusting naturally to the reduced gravity environment. Jace followed, measured and precise, tracking orientation points against the ship's exterior. Milo's movements were slightly exaggerated at first, compensating, then correcting as muscle memory recalibrated. Lena stayed close to the structure, eyes already scanning material composition and surface irregularities. Eli paused at the threshold for a fraction longer than the others, not out of fear, but because something about the transition felt incomplete, like a step taken before a signal had fully resolved. Tessa moved smoothly, controlled, monitoring both herself and the group. Rowan exited last, turning once to look back at the airlock before committing fully to the platform. The ship loomed behind them, massive, familiar. Ahead, there was nothing. And for the first time, that nothing felt like it had depth. The first mistake didn't look like much. A misaligned tether, corrected before it fully extended. A delayed response on a grip adjustment. The kind of thing that would have been flagged and reset in simulation without consequence. Out here, it carried weight. Milo caught it first, calling it out before the system registered it as a fault, his tone lighter than the situation required, but precise in its timing. Kara adjusted position immediately, compensating without hesitation. Jace confirmed stability across the group, voice steady, anchoring the moment before it could escalate into something else. Lena logged the discrepancy, already thinking in terms of cause rather than reaction. Tessa checked vitals again, confirming what everyone already felt but didn't say. Elevated but controlled. Eli watched the tether line a second longer than necessary, tracking its movement as it settled back into expected behavior. Rowan didn't speak. He just repositioned himself slightly closer to the group's center. Nothing failed. Nothing broke. But the shift was there. Small, controlled, contained. A reminder that out here, errors didn't disappear just because they were corrected. They stayed in the system. Logged. Remembered. The simulations carried over seamlessly from what they already knew, at least on the surface. The interfaces were familiar, the objectives clearly defined, and the environments built from datasets they had studied for years. But something about the execution felt different, less forgiving in ways that weren't immediately obvious. The delays between input and response were narrower. The system corrections came slower, allowing mistakes to exist just long enough to be noticed before being resolved. Jace adjusted first, recalibrating his timing to match the new thresholds. Lena pushed harder against the models, testing boundaries that didn't respond as predictably as they had in classroom environments. Milo found himself compensating mid-action more often, hands moving before thought could fully catch up. Kara treated every run as real, her movements sharp, efficient, leaving little margin for error. Eli monitored the data streams in parallel, watching for inconsistencies, though everything presented itself as clean. Tessa tracked physical responses, noting elevated stress markers that didn't match the perceived difficulty. Rowan questioned the scenario parameters, not because they were flawed, but because they felt incomplete. Nothing failed. Every objective was met. But when the system reset, there was a brief hesitation, a fraction of a second where the environment didn't fully clear before restarting. It was small, easy to overlook, but it happened every time. The shift to semi-real drills was marked less by announcement and more by limitation. Certain safeguards were reduced, others removed entirely, leaving the systems closer to operational conditions than instructional ones. The equipment responded with a sharper edge, less tolerance built into its behavior. EVA practice moved from controlled platforms to extended hull sections, where orientation depended more on personal awareness than guided systems. Kara thrived in it, her movements fluid, adapting quickly to the lack of correction. Jace maintained positional awareness across the group, tracking vectors with steady precision. Milo worked through minor system inconsistencies, adjusting calibrations on the fly when readouts didn't align perfectly with performance. Lena focused on external materials, running scans that occasionally returned values slightly outside expected ranges, though never enough to trigger concern. Eli continued monitoring comm channels, noting brief moments where background static didn't match the ship's known signal profile. Tessa stayed centered, watching for fatigue and strain as the drills extended longer than before. Rowan observed everything, saying little, but repositioning often, as if trying to anticipate something that hadn't happened yet. The drills ended without incident. Logs recorded success. Systems confirmed stability, but no one relaxed the way they had before. Equipment failure was introduced deliberately, or at least that's how it was explained. Minor faults inserted into the system to test response times and problem-solving under pressure. A delayed actuator response, a sensor returning incomplete data. Each issue presented within manageable limits, each one resolved through proper procedure. Milo handled most of them instinctively, his familiarity with the systems allowing him to bypass hesitation. Jace coordinated responses, keeping the group aligned through each disruption. Kara adjusted physically, compensating for mechanical inconsistencies without slowing her pace. Lena recalibrated her scans, filtering out corrupted inputs. Tessa monitored the physiological impact, ensuring stress levels remained within acceptable bounds. Eli tracked the signal disturbances, logging each one for later review. Rowan watched the patterns, because they were patterns. The failures occurred where expected, but their timing wasn't consistent. Not random either. Just shifted. Slightly earlier one cycle, slightly later the next. Still within acceptable variance, still explainable, but not identical. Not repeatable in the way controlled faults were supposed to be. When the session ended, the system flagged all failures as planned. No discrepancies noted. Rowan didn't argue. He just saved his own copy of the logs. By the time the anomalies began to overlap, they were already used to adapting. Small inconsistencies blended into expected variation. Differences explained away by system updates or calibration drift. A scan returning the correct data a fraction too quickly. A comm signal clearing before interference should have resolved. A visual marker appearing exactly where it was needed, even when no one had placed it. Individually, each event made sense. Together, they didn't quite align. Eli noticed it first, not as a problem, but as a lack of noise. Systems designed to operate over distance and time carried imperfections, minor distortions that confirmed their authenticity. These systems didn't. They were precise in a way that removed the imperfections entirely. He mentioned it once, casually, framing it as improved efficiency. No one challenged it. Why would they? Better performance wasn't a concern. Rowan didn't respond either, but he started watching the group instead of the systems, tracking reactions instead of data. Kara continued forward, focused on execution. Jace maintained control. Lena trusted her readings. Milo trusted his hands. Tessa trusted her assessments. Everything worked. Nothing failed. And somewhere beyond the hull, the stars remained fixed in their positions, holding steady against a silence that felt less like absence and more like restraint. The mission came through during a standard rotation window, flagged as routine but carrying a priority tag that set it apart from anything they had handled before. A passing asteroid, mid-size, irregular composition, drifting along the outer edge of the current system's gravity well. Initial scans suggested viable mineral deposits, nothing rare, nothing urgent. The kind of work meant to confirm readiness, not test limits. Still, the parameters were real. No simulation overlays, no controlled resets. What they did out there would remain done. Jace reviewed the trajectory first, mapping approach vectors and rotation timing with quiet precision. Lena focused on the scan package, already outlining potential extraction zones before they had even seen the surface directly. Milo checked and rechecked the equipment manifests, hands moving through routines that now carried more weight than before. Kara stood closer to the launch access than the others, her attention fixed outward, like she was already there. Eli read through the mission transmission twice, and a third time, not for instruction, but for structure. It followed standard format, perfectly. Tessa prepared medical kits scaled for real exposure, not simulated risk. Rowan reviewed the external environment logs, pausing longer than expected on entries that showed nothing out of place. The system cleared them for deployment without hesitation, which by now felt like the launch sequence was quieter than expected. No dramatic countdown, no shift in atmosphere beyond the mechanical certainty of systems engaging in order. The shuttle detached with a controlled release, drifting for a fraction of a second before thrusters engaged, an orientation aligned with Jace's plotted course. Through the forward viewport, the colony ship receded slowly, its scale becoming more apparent as distance stretched it into something less familiar. Inside the cabin, movement was minimal, each of them anchored into position, attention fixed on their respective roles. Kara monitored external alignment, tracking proximity markers as they adjusted course. Lena prepared scanning arrays, calibrating for surface density variations. Milo kept a steady stream of diagnostics running, watching for discrepancies that didn't appear. Eli listened to the comm channel, noting the absence of background interference that should have been present at this range. Tessa checked vitals, confirming what everyone already felt but didn't say. Elevated but controlled. Rowan watched the colony ship until it slipped beyond the edge of the viewport, his focus lingering just long enough to register the moment it disappeared completely. Ahead of them, the asteroid rotated slowly, its surface catching distant light in uneven fragments. It looked stable, predictable, exactly like it was supposed to. Approach was smooth, controlled down to the smallest adjustment. Jace guided the shuttle into a matching rotation with the asteroid's slow spin, aligning them with a section of surface that appeared structurally stable. From a distance, it was nothing more than rock, uneven, fractured, marked by time and impact. Up close, the details sharpened. Striations ran deeper than expected. Surface patterns intersected at angles that suggested compression beyond natural formation. Lena noted it immediately, her voice steady as she adjusted scan parameters to account for density variations that didn't align cleanly with the initial data. Milo ran system checks in parallel, confirming that their instruments were functioning within expected tolerances. Kara prepared for Eva, her movements efficient, practiced. Eli monitored signal return, pausing briefly when a reflection pattern appeared in the scan data that didn't correspond to any known material signature. It resolved before he could isolate it. Tessa logged baseline readings. Rowan watched the surface through the viewport, tracking the rotation, the shadows, the way light moved across it. For a moment, just a fraction of one rotation cycle, one section of the asteroid seemed to hold its position longer than it should have, resisting the motion before settling back into alignment. No system flagged it. No alert triggered. The rotation continued, smooth and uninterrupted. The airlock cycle completed with the same mechanical certainty they had grown used to, but the context had changed. This wasn't a controlled platform attached to a stable structure. This was a free body, drifting, rotating, existing without support or correction. Kara exited first again, her boots making contact with the asteroid's surface in a controlled, deliberate motion. The texture beneath her feet was more stable than expected, less particulate, more cohesive. Jace followed, anchoring orientation points relative to the shuttle's position. Lena began immediate surface scans, her readings adjusting in real time as new data replaced assumptions. Milo monitored suit integrity and tether lines, his focus sharper now, movements more precise. Eli stepped out last among the group, pausing just long enough to listen through the comm channel before fully committing to the surface. Tessa maintained oversight, tracking vitals and environmental exposure. Rowan exited and turned once, not back toward the shuttle, but outward, scanning the surrounding space as if expecting something beyond the immediate task. The asteroid held steady beneath them. No shifts, no instability, just solid ground in a place where that concept didn't quite belong. And for the first time since they began, no one thought about training. Lena's initial surface scans should have stabilized within seconds, the data resolving into clean layers of density, composition, and structural integrity. Instead, the readings continued to adjust long after the system should have locked them in. At first, the variation was small, within acceptable margins, easily explained by irregular formation. But the longer she watched, the more the numbers refused to settle into a consistent model. Sections of the asteroid appeared denser, then less so, without any corresponding physical shift. Milo rerouted the scan through secondary systems, confirming that the equipment was functioning correctly. The results remained the same. Jace adjusted their positional alignment, ensuring that rotation and drift weren't introducing false readings. Still no change. Kara moved closer to the surface feature Lena had marked, crouching slightly as her gloved hand hovered just above the rock. Eli monitored the signal feedback, noting that the scan pulses returned faster than they should have at that range, as if the distance between emitter and surface had shortened. Tessa logged the anomaly without comment. Rowan stepped in beside Kara, not stopping her, but not looking at the scan either. He was watching the surface itself. Because for a moment, just at the edge of perception, it didn't look like the readings were changing to match the rock. It looked like the rock was adjusting to match the readings. Kara made contact first. Not a test tap or a cautious probe, but a controlled press of her gloved hand against the surface, the kind of movement that expected resistance. The rock held, solid, stable, exactly as it should have been. But the feedback in her suit registered something else. Not movement, not temperature, just a delay. A fraction of a second where the system didn't immediately interpret what had happened. She pulled back slightly, then pressed again. This time the response came faster, normal, aligned with expectation. "Surface integrity confirmed," she said, her voice steady over comms. Milo acknowledged, logging the input. Lena adjusted her scan parameters again, forcing a manual lock on the dataset. The readings complied, settling into a stable configuration as if they had always been that way. Eli watched the signal return normalize, the timing falling back into expected ranges. Tessa noted the absence of physiological stress spikes. Rowan didn't move. He looked at the exact point where Kara's hand had been, because when she pulled away, the surface hadn't changed shape, but the light across it had. Just slightly, like something had shifted beneath it, not enough to see directly, but enough to know it hadn't been there before. They moved on from it because that's what the mission required. Data collection continued. Samples were marked, logged, and extracted within parameters that remained, on the surface, unchanged. Jace maintained positional awareness. Lena confirmed material viability. Milo kept systems stable. Kara advanced along the surface. Eli monitored comms. Tessa tracked vitals. Rowan stayed just slightly out of alignment with the group, his attention moving between them and the terrain beneath their feet. It was Eli who saw it first this time, not through a scan. Through the viewport feed cycling back to his display. A section of the surface they had already passed over appeared again in frame, identical in structure, identical in patterning. At first, it looked like a repeat in rotation, but the timing didn't match. The asteroid's spin should not have brought that section back into view yet. "Hold position," he said, quieter than usual. The group paused. No alarms triggered. No system flagged an error. Lena checked the coordinates. They were correct. Jace confirmed rotation speed. Unchanged. Kara turned, looking back along their path. The surface behind them was unbroken. No duplicate formations. No anomalies visible. Eli replayed the feed. The image was still there. The same section. The same angles. The same light. But when he looked up, it wasn't. The decision to return came without argument. Not urgent, not panicked, just complete. The mission parameters had been met, data collected, samples secured. Jace plotted the return vector with the same precision he had used on approach, guiding them back toward the shuttle with controlled efficiency. One by one, they disengaged from the surface, boots lifting away from the asteroid without resistance. Kara was the last to step off, her gaze lingering for a fraction longer than necessary. The shuttle accepted them back without issue, systems cycling cleanly, seals holding exactly as designed. Milo ran diagnostics. All green. Lena reviewed collected data. Stable. Eli monitored comms. Clear. Tessa confirmed vitals. Normal. Rowan looked out through the viewport as the shuttle pulled away. The asteroid rotated behind them, steady, unchanged. Exactly as it had been when they arrived. And then, just before it slipped out of view, one section of its surface shifted. Not in structure, not in motion, in position, like a frame in a sequence placed just slightly out of order. Then it was gone. The stars beyond it held steady. Sahel. Indifferent. Waiting.
Just carry what we can't repeat. No ground beneath, no sky above, just the weight of what we were made of. We are the last light leaving Earth, carried forward from fading birth, through the cold where the stars don't speak. We hold the line. We don't grow weak. We are the fire that won't There's a road in the great unknown, no home behind, no hand to guide, just the echo we keep inside. We are the last light leaving Earth, not the end, but a second birth. In the dark where the future waits, we hold the line.